But there is one particular struggle that does much damage to us. It does much damage to how we see. It does much damage to how we live. It does much damage to how you feel, both mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It does much damage to the soul. And that is the human struggle with personal identity.
Come on in, let's talk about it. Come on in, let's talk about it. Make it make sense.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. So you sent us this really compelling excerpt from Pastor Philip Anthony Mitchell.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff.
It really is. And we wanted to dig into it because it tackles something so fundamental, right?
Mm-hmm.
This whole struggle with personal identity, like what shapes it? What happens if it's shaky?
And that big idea talks about finding your right identity and how that changes things.
Exactly. And, our aim here is always to kind of cut through the noise, give you those aha moments without making your head spin. So this feels like a perfect topic for that. Let's just jump in.
Okay. Well, the first thing that really jumps out is how Pastor Mitchell positions this identity struggle. It's not just one issue among many.
Mm-hmm.
He suggests it might be the foundational one, the thing underneath a lot of other struggles we see or feel ourselves.
Right. And he uses these really vivid images, doesn't he? Calling someone without a strong identity a thermometer of confusion.
Or a chameleon.
Yeah, the chameleon, constantly changing based on who they're around. I think we can all sort of recognize that, Maybe we've seen it or even felt it ourselves sometimes.
Absolutely. And the consequence, he says it really clearly, is vacillating behavior void of any real convictions.
Oof. Vacillating behavior.
Yeah. Think about what that means. If who you are is mostly defined by what's outside you.
Then your actions won't have that inner compass, right?
Exactly. No grounding in core beliefs. So you might act one way one week, another way the next, depending on the pressures.
It's almost like his phrase, becoming the space you're in. Just soaking up whatever trend is current without a filter.
Mm-hmm.
And this really got me thinking. Always evolving into something different, but never becoming who you was created to be. That speaks right to that desire for authenticity, doesn't it?
It really does. It sounds like this constant motion, always trying to fit some external mold.
But never connecting with something deeper inside.
Right. You never quite arrive because you're always adopting new personas. And that connects back to, feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that solid internal core, it's easy to feel lost, pushed around by everything outside.
And the potential downsides he outlines,
Yeah.
if that identity is weak, they are pretty serious. He argues it can lead people to put up with unhealthy situations for way too long.
Yeah, even dangerous or abusive ones. That's a heavy point, but an important one.
It is. Because if your own self-worth isn't anchored in who you are,
It becomes easier to accept less, doesn't it? To rationalize mistreatment, maybe settle in relationships or jobs or just life generally.
yeah, because you lack that inner conviction of your own value.
That lack of an internal compass can really keep you stuck.
He uses those examples, staying in bad relationships, bad places. We've all heard stories like that, maybe even been there.
Mm-hmm.
But then he flips it and talks about the power of a strong identity. And this part, wow, when you know who you are, man, you walk different, live different, talk different.
Pray different. Seek God different. Your faith is different.
Your swag is different. You handle trouble differently. You bounce back from things quicker. That's quite a list.
It really shows how knowing yourself isn't just some abstract idea. It seeps into everything, right? Your actions, your resilience.
Yeah, it suggests knowing who you are gives you this fundamental strength.
It influences how you move through the world, how you face challenges.
Okay, so how does this identity get shaped?
Mm.
What are the big factors? He lists quite a few.
Yeah, upbringing, home life, parents, or lack thereof.
Environment, exposure, even like failures and struggles, our worldview.
All the things that contribute. But he really zooms in on two main shapers.
Right, he calls them knowledge and kinship.
Knowledge and kinship. What you know and who you belong to.
That's an interesting pairing.
It is. Knowledge, presumably, means the beliefs, the values, the information you internalize as true.
Okay.
And kinship is that sense of connection, belonging, the groups, the communities that kind of reinforce those beliefs.
So it's not just what's in your head, but who you're connected to.
Exactly. It's the social fabric supporting yourself.
And he tells that story from Planet of the Apes to illustrate this, right? the story of Caesar,
Yeah, it's a really effective analogy. Caesar, the ape raised by humans.
grappling with who he is, where he fits.
Exactly. He's asking that question, what is Caesar? He's kind of stuck between worlds, doesn't fully belong anywhere.
Because he doesn't know his origins.
Right. He lacks that foundational knowledge and kinship. He's in a kind of bondage, really.
Until that moment, he learns the truth. Pastor Mitchell quotes it. This is where you was born, this who your mother was, this where you came from.
And that knowledge, discovering his roots, his connection to other apes, it changes everything for him.
It's liberating.
Totally. It's not just about biology. It's understanding his true nature, his belonging. And that identity shift fuels his actions, his leadership.
It shows how understanding where you come from can just unlock so much.
Precisely. It gives him agency, a purpose that wasn't there before. It comes from that deep understanding of origin and connection, not just external labels.
And that what if Pastor Mitchell raises is powerful? Caesar could have stayed a pet.
Or become this revivalist leader.
And the key difference was finding his true identity. It really shows the impact of knowing who you are.
Yeah, it wasn't about changing fundamentally, but understanding and embracing what was already inherent in him. That unlocked his potential.
Then Pastor Mitchell makes it really personal. He talks about shaping the Mitchell identity in his own family.
Right, setting clear expectations based on their family name.
Yeah, like you are a Mitchell, so you don't behave that way.
Yeah.
You do your best, you respect adults, you don't cheat.
You have character, integrity. You don't lie. You don't act a fool in public. Don't embarrass my name.
It's a very clear, strong sense of family identity he's building there.
And crucially, he says these aren't just random rules. They're rooted in principles from God's word, from a higher authority.
Okay, so that ties back to the knowledge part.
Exactly. Here are the standards. That's the knowledge. And the kinship is, you came from my loins, so this is the way you roll.
A clear sense of belonging with shared values tied to a specific framework.
Yeah. He lists those core values, honoring God, prayer, love, forgiveness, service, generosity, integrity.
He's very intentionally shaping their identity through those principles and their connection to the family name.
Absolutely. And that leads into his next point about sort of deflecting glory, not taking personal credit.
Right. Attributing success or positive outcomes to a higher power, he shares stories about people being surprised by his own journey.
Yeah, like, Philip, we can't believe you came through that. Or, what are you doing preaching God's word?
And his response is to point away from himself.
It suggests a kind of humility, recognizing something bigger at play. He wants people to see, as he puts it, God's glory.
He mentions that phrase, you don't even look like what you've been through, connecting it to affirming others, calling them survivors.
It's acknowledging a strength that he believes comes from beyond just individual grit, shifting focus from personal achievement to being maybe a testament to something more.
Which then flows naturally into the theological part, doesn't it? The idea of humans being created as image bearers, the imago Dei.
Yeah, that foundational idea that humans are meant to reflect God's character, his glory, in the world.
Like we're designed to mirror something divine.
That's the concept. That capacity is inherent, even if it feels, broken or marred sometimes. That potential is still part of our intrinsic worth.
But Pastor Mitchell says sin messed up that image, in his view.
Right, leading to this need for God to find other ways to reveal himself. And that brings us to the story of Israel.
He presents Israel as this nation God formed specifically for that purpose.
To demonstrate his virtues, his values, his relationship with humanity. He mentions the covenant with Abraham, the Exodus,
The Ten Commandments.
all meant to showcase God's character.
He quickly covers their history, wanting a king, the kingdom splitting, the exile of Judah because of idolatry.
It's a fast overview, yeah. But the point seems to be that even when they messed up and faced exile, God didn't ultimately ditch them.
Okay, and that sets up the passage in Isaiah 43.
Exactly, because that's where God speaks directly to them in exile, reminding them who they are despite everything.
It's a message of redemption, reassurance.
Yeah, the context of exile is key. They're displaced, suffering, and God steps in. He says, I created you, O Jacob, he who formed you, O Israel.
He's reminding them of their origin, their purpose, that they were specifically made set apart.
And then those huge words, fear not, for I have redeemed you. That idea of buying them back.
Like from slavery before.
Precisely. And then, I have called you by name, you are mine. That's incredibly personal, isn't it? That connection, that belonging.
It really is.
And Pastor Mitchell connects this directly to modern believers, saying they are also this distinct people created, formed, redeemed, meant to reflect God.
That story he told about the pastor in the gym.
Yeah. And the friend being surprised, wow, I knew there was something different about you.
It illustrates that idea of living in a way that reflects that identity.
Right. And that identity comes with this promise of God's presence in hard times. Isaiah 43, verses 2 and 3.
When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned.
It's not a promise to avoid the waters or the fire, is it?
No, it says when you pass through, not if.
Exactly. The promise is God's presence with you through it, not being overwhelmed or destroyed because he's there.
He also mentions Jesus saying, we will have trouble.
But take heart, he's overcome the world. And Psalm 23, though I walk through the valley,
I will fear no evil, for you are with me.
yeah, the strength comes from that connection, that presence, not just our own ability to swim or withstand heat.
Then verses 3 and 4 of Isaiah 43, they talk about God's commitment, his love. I give Egypt as your ransom, because you are precious in my eyes and honored, and I love you.
That idea of God giving nations as a ransom, it underlines just how incredibly valuable he considers them.
It's a powerful declaration of love and worth.
Absolutely. That he'd pay any price for their rescue, which ultimately points to the sacrifice of Jesus. It shows this deep, unwavering love.
Pastor Mitchell shares examples of God intervening in people's lives now, freeing them from different kinds of bondage.
Yeah, illustrating that ongoing commitment. It's like sometimes you feel overlooked, right? Until someone really sees your value.
Mm-hmm.
He connects that feeling to God's perspective, assuring people they are precious, honored, loved by him, even when they feel broken or insecure.
And then there's the prophecy in verses 5 to 7 about gathering them back from exile, bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth.
Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory.
And he points to the creation of the state of Israel in 1948 as a fulfillment of that, after almost 2,000 years.
Yeah, he presents it as this incredible example of God's word proving reliable over vast stretches of time, a testament to the promises in the text.
Against all odds, really.
And he links that endurance to the church as well, founded by Jesus, suggesting it too will ultimately prevail. It's about the security found in that belonging, those promises.
So all of this builds towards his final encouragement.
Right, to live boldly in that identity, knowing whose name you bear, who you belong to.
He contrasts praying tentatively like a beggar.
With approaching God boldly, as Hebrews suggests, because of Jesus' sacrifice.
It's about living out that identity, praying like a son or daughter of the king, loving, forgiving, being generous in that same spirit.
Aligning your life with that core understanding of who you are in relation to God, that your primary identity is found there above all else.
So wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be that really understanding and embracing your true identity, rooted in that knowledge and kinship Pastor Mitchell talked about.
It changes everything, how you see yourself, how you face challenges, just how you live your life.
It really prompts you to think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What factors have shaped my identity? Am I living in line with what I believe is my sort of core or right identity?
It definitely does.
And maybe a final thought to chew on. What could shift in your outlook or your actions if you fully took on board that idea that you are precious, honored, deeply loved, and that your story, like Israel's, might have a purpose beyond just your immediate situation? It's definitely worth exploring those ideas of identity and belonging. Thanks for digging into this with us today.